Hey guys, it's your host, Avery Carl. Welcome to the Short Term Show special episode series on Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. I'm super excited to do this 10-episode deep dive into this market with you, and I wanted to make a few notes for you first. So if you want to set up a search for properties or see current purchase prices or current income numbers in this market, you can do that at our website, theshorttermshop.com. If you just want to connect with us and hang out and talk about short-term rentals more, you can do that in our Facebook group. It's the same title as my book. It's called Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. And you can also find the information on all of our other market short-term show special episode series there as well. So we look really forward to hanging out with you over the next 10 episodes, and we'll catch you guys on the next one. Let's go. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Short Term Show special episode series on Myrtle Beach. Today, we're going to be talking about common occurrences that you're going to have to deal with when you're managing and running a property in this market. So I've got a cool panel here to help me talk about this. First, we've got Bradley Klein. Bradley, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, I'm Bradley Klein, and I am one of two Myrtle Beach agents in the area. Of course, I help all the buyers and sellers in the area. And Samantha is our other agent. All
right. Thank you, Bradley. Next, we have Tim Grillo. Tim, you introduce yourself really quick.
Yeah, absolutely. Good morning, everybody. My name's Tim Grillo. I actually live in the Smoky Mountains, but own properties in both beach markets and the Smokies. So spend a lot of time managing properties.
Yes, you do. You've got a bunch of them at this point. So let's talk about this. So let's talk about common occurrences in the Myrtle Beach market, managing beach properties that you're going to run into. And I'm going to just go straight for the jugular here, and let's jump right into weather and guests that want to cancel for weather when it's not necessarily a thing. So what I mean by that is, yes, hurricane season happens every single year, and you will see on the news, even if you live in Michigan, you will see stuff about hurricanes on the news several times, probably like, August, September, October time. And it technically starts June 1st, I think, but don't really hear too much until later in the fall. So anyway, it's a big thing on the news. And what will happen is people will see that on the news, and they'll want to start canceling their vacations with you in Myrtle Beach, even if we aren't sure the tornado, even if we aren't sure the hurricane's going to go to Myrtle Beach yet. Maybe it's headed more towards inside the Gulf. Maybe it's going to strike, South Florida and not really get up to the Myrtle Beach area. So what are some best practices when it comes to, there's a named hurricane, people want to start canceling and we don't even know where it's going yet?
So for me, well, one, you're absolutely right. This will happen. 100% is going to happen if you own in a beach market. I don't care which one it is. And it really, quite frankly, anywhere you have these things, something's going to happen and people are going to ask about canceling because of X. It could be rain, but anyway, I think first and foremost, be somewhat forward in your listings about it. Have something as blunt as we don't cancel for weather, so have that for sure. And then on the other side of it, I think, empathy goes a long way and educating goes a long way. Most of the time people visiting these markets they don't live there, so they live in an area that doesn't have hurricanes, so they don't know what to expect in it, and it's scary. I'm from one of those places and hurricanes scare me. If you live there, it's different. So anyway, I'd say having some empathy when you're dealing with this, it goes a long ways, but encouraging travel insurance, we absolutely do that. But it's kind of a firm, but be understanding. So like when we communicate with guests, we tell them, no, we don't cancel for this. Now, if it gets to a formal evacuation, we do. We get to, if it comes to like, the National Weather Service issues or the local government or whatever issues in an evacuation, then we do refund for that. But a lot of times those will be like a 10 days ahead of thing where the likelihood is they're going to show up and there's a decent chance it's actually going to be sunny. There's not, that happens a lot. We've had a lot of people wanting to cancel and then they end up having the best vacation they've ever had. And it's just been gorgeous when they get there because hurricanes do silly things. They turn and they don't always know exactly where they're going to land and things like that. So that's really kind of a little bit how we handle it. But it just takes a little bit of practice and understanding, it takes a lot of understanding, just knowing that they're just scared a little bit and they don't want their vacation ruined. So
yeah. And one thing I want to highlight is that we're not trying to like hold people into a vacation where the hurricane is coming to this market. This is only, we're just talking about if there's a hurricane out there, we don't know where it's going. Obviously, if it is going to be a direct hit to Myrtle Beach, we're giving refunds. Okay. We're not trying to force people like, oh, well, I'm not going to give you a refund, so I guess you better show up and, force people into a dangerous situation for their family. We're strictly talking about if it's not necessarily coming towards and people just want to cancel preemptively.
absolutely. Yeah. If there's a hurricane coming, we're telling them not to come. Of course, if it's coming for sure, we're telling them not to come. But like you said, when it's way out in the water and we don't know yet, we just kind of communicate with them and tell them to stay, keep watching the news and watch. We actually give them we do digital guidebooks. So our digital guidebooks contain a lot of information. We give a lot of links to local governments and local educational agencies for those types of things. So that way they have more than just us to follow on that. So that way, if something were to happen while they're there, heaven forbid, they have, the knowledge that they need to deal with it.
So let's dial that back a little bit. And because we see this happen with some of our beach properties sometimes where people show up and it's not a hurricane, but it's just, they didn't get the best weather in the world during their stay, unrelated to hurricanes. We're talking spring break maybe, and they get there and they happen to have a rainy few days, but then they want a discount for that. What do we do about that?
It's kind of the same thing. We try and get ahead of those things. So, we put in our listings things that say exactly what you just said. This could happen, and we don't refund for that. But here we give them again, we use the guidebook. There's other ways you can do it, but we give them things to do on a rainy day. We'll give them a bunch of suggestions of things in the area that are entertainment based that to try and make the best of it as best as we can.
Gotcha. So we're not giving discounts for that kind of weather.
We don't.
That makes sense. I agree with that 100%. Anything else related to weather you think we need to go over before we move on to a different topic? Maybe?
Really just be upfront about it. I mean, that's kind of my theory with a lot of things is just set the expectation up front so there's no surprises. People don't like being surprised. And so if you set the expectation up front, it takes a little bit of word crafting to not make it sound like you're just being harsh and just absolutely no refund. You don't want to word it like that, but you do need to be on the other side of it. You don't want to be so wishy-washy about it that they don't understand what you're saying. So just be upfront that weather can happen. We don't have control over the weather. If weather does happen, here's the best way to salvage, what you got going on. So,
all right. So let's move on to some other things that you may have to deal with and maintain at the beach. So a lot of properties, if you're getting single family and which Myrtle Beach, I would say is, correct me if I'm wrong, Bradley, more condos than single families, right?
Yeah, there's probably 80-20, 75-25, roughly in that area, but there's definitely significantly more condos than single family homes for sure.
Gotcha. So typically, if you are getting a single family home, I highly recommend getting a property with a pool. And what are some things that we have to keep in mind when we are in terms of pool maintenance and things like that? We definitely need to get a pool heater if you're buying a property that has one that doesn't have one, but what else? Yeah,
that was my biggie I was going to go to was the pool heater. Obviously make sure the pool is clean and, everything works, just have a regular pool service go out and do maintenance on the pool. As long as you're doing that, for the most part, pools aren't this huge surprise thing that's just going to pop up a bunch of problems usually. I mean, really the only problems I've ever had is for some reason the pool heater's off, and that will upset people. So make sure the pool heater's on and working properly. So, and obviously chemicals and all that kind of stuff are right. So,
yeah. And how do we get around what we're supplying people with in terms of being at the pool? So do we have a different kind of towel for the pool, or how do we manage that?
Yeah. My recommendation there is create a system that works for you and is convenient and easy for the guest to understand. We do different towels. We have different colored towels that are pool towels, and we ask them not to take the other towels out. So again, there's not a one size fits all. Just have a system that works for you, that's easy for you, your cleaners, and the guests to all understand and make it manageable. Don't overcomplicate it, and definitely don't overthink it. So what you don't want is to have your good towels that go in your bathroom get ruined by being outside and getting whatever.
So special towels, we want to make sure we have a pool heater. What do we do if like a guest gets there and they're like, oh my God, the pool's dirty? How do we handle that?
Well, I'd say that depends on, obviously if it's a condo or a single family home. If it's a condo, you're going to be making a call to the HOA, and the HOA, all the HOAs I've dealt with that have pools have actually been extremely responsive to that. And they'll typically send out a maintenance person. And these are questions that you can also ask when you're kind of in the buying process. If you're doing HOA, ask questions like that, like who handles these kinds of complaints and stuff like that, because they do handle it differently from HOA to HOA. But typically they're using a management company. They'll go out and deal with it. If it's a single family home, you're going to kind of have to manage that yourself. And obviously, you're going to have a pool person that you use. So again, the more upfront you can be about these sorts of things, like, understand what your pool person will do and what their hours are, and have that stuff in the listing / guidebook, whatever you're using to communicate with your guests, so that they know, if they call at 9:00 at night, that you're probably not sending a pool person out there at 9:00 at night. You can, anything happens, please let us know, but these are the hours and this is how we'll do our best to respond. So again, setting as much expectation up front that you can.
Yeah, totally agree with that. Just manage expectations on the front end. It's much easier to let people know than to have to apologize when they're already mad. So definitely make sure that you let them know everything they need to know regarding the pool. Oh, go ahead.
To me, it's as important on the managing expectation with a guest as it is my contractor. So whoever your pool service person is, make sure you and the pool service have the same expectation as well. Because if your expectation is this and the service they're offering is something different, you're going to constantly have problems and you're constantly frustrated. So make sure, equalizing expectations across the board is huge. So, and again, the more you can do up front, prior to the guest, you want the guest experience to be flawless. Obviously, it's not always that way, but you want to strive for that. And the more you strive for that, the less problems you're going to have.
Totally agree. So let's talk about some other things that might be specific to this and outside. How about sand management?
Yeah, that's a biggie, especially, my properties are condos and they are beachfront. So sand management is a thing. Again, if you have a condo, there's usually going to be an area for this. If there's not, and I recommend, you have to balance your time on this, but, have some sort of involvement with your HOA, attend the meetings, listen to what they're saying, speak up. But we've actually invested, not a ton of money, but we've got a nice shower area for when you come off the beach. We actually put feet washing stations in and the overhead and everything. So, and then again, communicate this stuff to your guests so that they know, you don't just rely on your HOA sign. Also put something in all your literature saying, before you come inside from the beach, wash off. And so that's really the biggie. Choice of flooring goes a long way with sand management. Don't install carpet, and if you have carpet, rip it out. Be careful what kind of rugs and stuff you choose. I think it's fine to have rugs in condos on the beach, but be mindful of what kind of fabrics and stuff you're choosing, because you are going to get sand inside your units. And I'd say, every once in a while we have an issue with drains where our drain will get sand in the P traps and stuff, and we have to have a plumber go out there and deal with that. So again, the more you can stay ahead of those sorts of things, the better you are. So the best way for me to stay ahead of that is I would rather get that feedback from my cleaner than I would from a guest. So like I tell my cleaners, like if it starts getting slow, like not even clogged, just slow, let me know. That way I can get it taken care of before it becomes an issue with a guest. Again, we're trying to have the guests never have to report these things, but sometimes it happens. So
what else related to outside things that you have to manage inside your house do you think we need to be aware of? Is there any like bug problems? Or, there's definitely bigger bugs in coastal areas, I'll say, than other places, but
yeah, I think a couple, I'm not going to talk the bugs. Yeah. Do pest control, but two things for me are door locks and balcony doors. So I want to touch on each of those separately, but the door locks, you are in an area that's affected by salt. So salt water and salt mist in the air. So your door locks are going to have the chance to fail due to just salt having corrosion issues. So the way we manage that is, obviously having a backup key. So we actually, have a lockbox somewhere and with a backup key in it. So that way, if the electronics in your door lock keypad fail, you can have a backup key to get in. What we actually do on that too, and this may seem a little extreme, but I actually love it, is it can be a pain to get somebody to go out there that knows how to program a digital door lock. So we will actually have a spare door lock that's all programmed to our Wi-Fi and all ready to go in an owner's closet that's locked up. So that way, if we have a failure on the electronic lock, we can send any handyman out there that can change a doorknob and put the new lock in, and they don't have to do all the programming and stuff. They just literally put it in, put the batteries in it, and it links up and it's ready to go. So that's a biggie for us, and that's saved us more than once having that spare sitting there. So, and this doesn't happen it's not like your door lock's going out every day, but it is something that happens in beach markets that doesn't really happen in other places. So that's one thing. And then another is, and this is just a silly thing, but people will leave the balcony door wide open on your balcony, and they love the breeze coming through, and it's nice, I can't lie. But what will happen, especially in the summer, is if you have your air conditioner on, they won't shut the air conditioner off. They'll have the door open, and it'll be enough to where the air conditioner runs nonstop, and it will freeze up your HVAC unit. And then they'll close the door, and then they'll go, it's hot in here, and you'll get a message saying your air conditioner's not working and it's broken and blah, blah, blah. And so there, obviously you can put up signs, you can, communicate that, and some people put a label right on their thermostat that says that. Some people put a label on their door. That's up to you how you want to do that, but you need to communicate it somewhere that if you're going to have the balcony door open, shut the HVAC off and not have it on, or it will freeze and, have some consequence to that if it freezes, it's not going to work. Beyond that, there are systems that you can get that are like an interlock system where if it's like a sensor that goes on the door, that if you open the door, it shuts off the HVAC. That's getting a little bit more complicated, but those things do exist.
So yeah, I think now that we're talking about like door locks and exterior stuff, so what exterior wise do we have to manage in this market that might cause problems for guests? You already mentioned one, if the door lock dies, which does tend to happen more often in these beach markets than in markets where there's less salt in the air. But what else do we have to think about?
Furniture, any kind of outdoor furniture you have. I highly recommend using like a polywood style furniture, some kind of a robust plastic. Both the sun and the salt attack furniture. And if you get like deck furniture from Lowe's or anywhere, I shouldn't say Lowe's, any department store, the stuff that's rated for outdoors, it is going to rust. And the initial steps of that, you're going to have stains all over your balcony. And the second, worst phase is it can get so bad that it breaks, because those things are just kind of thin metal wrapped in wicker or whatever. And so get good outdoor furniture. And then the other thing is sun beats them up. So you want the good outdoor plastic furniture is very resistant to the sun and everything. It stays fresher looking for a long time. If you're in a condo building, your balconies are typically going to be concrete, and they're either going to have tile or something like that on them. So you don't really have a whole lot of maintenance to worry about there. You do have to keep an eye on your railings and stuff. Make sure your railings are, aluminum is usually preferred, but just make sure you're not getting rust and corrosion issues on your railings. If you have a single family home and you have a deck, obviously, well, not obviously, that's why we're talking about this, because it's not obvious, but any of your fasteners are susceptible to corrosion. Mm-hmm. So, you got to keep an eye on things like deck screws and nails and stuff like that. If they're getting rusty, a lot of times those things in these markets are built with like stainless steel screws, but not always. So just, you have some exterior maintenance type of things that you may need to do.
I'm trying to think what else. So, definitely all kinds of corrosion problems, not necessarily problems, but stuff you have to keep an eye on.
It's corrosion management. And I it's nothing to be scared of. It's just a different thing. If you live in Michigan or Iowa or someplace like that, you've never had to deal with this stuff. It's no different than having to deal with snow, somewhere else. It's not like the end of the world. It's just something new that you may have to deal with that you haven't dealt with before. So, but corrosion is, like I said, one of the big things. You'll have it if you supply any kind of beach, I'm gonna say chairs, umbrellas, things like that. Same thing, they can corrode, if they have metal pieces and parts in them. So you kind of may need to be ready to replace those once a year or however often it needs it. So stuff like that.
Yeah. So Bradley, is Myrtle Beach a big market where people want to ride golf carts or bicycles around?
Yeah, that's what I was going to touch on, actually, especially with single family homes. A lot of property managers, self-managed, obviously, will provide golf carts. You have electric and you have gas golf carts. So I recommend to supply an electric golf cart as opposed to gas, because you don't want to have to rely on gas to have to fill up the gas or have to rely on a cleaner to have to make sure it's topped up. It can be forgotten. Of course, with electric, you just plug it in and off you go. But there are liabilities to it. So they can't be driven after dusk and before dawn. They have to remain within 4 miles of the residence that it's registered. And they can't be driven on main highways. So there are some liability issues that do come with golf carts, which of course liability comes with everything, but people do supply golf carts, yes.
So I think my suggestion there would be, if they exist, is to, instead of supplying your own golf cart, supplying the info for a company that will rent golf carts to them and drop it off. Yeah. So that way you're shifting that liability away. Same thing with bicycles. Have a company drop them off so that A, the liability is not on you to maintain it, but B, when they have all these questions about something that's not working right, which I don't know how to fix a golf cart. I don't know how to, I can't even ride a bicycle. I don't know how to fix a bicycle. I could not even tell you how to like change a tire or a chain on a bicycle. So I am not the person to help you if I'm managing a property and you have a problem with my bicycle. So I like to just give them the number in their guidebook of a place that will do it. Make sure that it's listed very clearly several times. If that's what they want, they can order from these people and they'll deliver it. And so that way, all of those questions go to the company and not to me, because I don't know how to do these things. So that's my recommendation for that.
Another thing that this is not really an occurrence, but it is an educational thing that we like to do is I'll say being respectful of like environmental and wildlife issues and that are in the area. A lot of beach markets have certain things going on with turtles and things like that, and as owners, we're very mindful of what that is. But again, these people that are coming here, your guests, they're not from the area. So we do provide some amount of literature of just kind of the rules and regulations and things that, people don't necessarily know. You're not supposed to run around in the dunes and throw sand everywhere and things like that. And so again, we do it with links in our guidebooks and a couple other little things that we do. But you don't want to, if you're in a building of condos, you don't want to be the one that people are constantly calling saying, hey, somebody in your unit's doing X, you just don't want that for yourself. So anything you do to help educate your guests on that, because they just don't know. They're not usually going to be maliciously trying to do something they're not supposed to be doing. They just don't know the culture of where they are. So
yeah, I think that's a really important call out, because a lot of people, I remember being a kid and there was this one huge dune in Grayton Beach that I don't think it's there anymore. I think it's, been a few hurricanes since then, but we loved trying to climb to the top of it. I mean, it was huge. And now I'm like, oh, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to be going on the dunes.
Lights at dark is a big thing. People like, chasing crabs on the beach at dark. And, a lot of places now you're supposed to, have the correct color light so that it doesn't disrupt the turtles and stuff like that when you're doing that. So just little stuff like that. So
yeah, you're supposed to have a red light. We actually, not that long ago, just across the street from my office is the beach. And there was some kids had dug a hole. You're supposed to always fill in your holes if you're, doing that kind of thing when you're at the beach. And a 600-pound sea turtle did fall in it and she couldn't get out. And a jogger found her in the morning and she was too big for her to be able to pull her out. I don't know if she was 600 pounds. I think that I misquoted that. I don't know. They're several hundred pounds. They're expensive. I mean, they're expensive. They're heavy. They're really heavy. So, luckily, a bunch of people stopped and were able to help get that turtle out. But it's not like, oh gosh, that turtle fell. Let me pick it up and move it. It's not something that you can just do. It's not a dog or like a box turtle that's in the middle of the road. So you definitely want to be respectful of those because they are endangered. And very important to remember. Also, managing. So Bradley, how do people know? Is there any kind of notification system or flag system in Myrtle Beach when it comes to the rip currents and the beach conditions?
Yeah, so that's actually funny. My first job in Myrtle Beach was an ocean lifeguard, so I know a little bit about this. But yes, they do have the flags that indicate whether it's riptides, whether you can or can't go in the ocean, whether there's marine life in the area. They are indicated by yellow, red, black, different colored flags, correct? And they do have signage that do state to stay off the dunes, because yes, you're not supposed to go on the dunes. They're there for a purpose. We have obviously areas where we have alligators, and again, typically it's signposted that if you see an alligator, don't feed them, don't go in the water in those areas, because of course this is their habitat, and we entered their area, that they didn't come into ours. So of course we do have that kind of wildlife around here. But it is pretty well signposted.
Yeah. I think it's very important to make sure that your guests have access to what those flags mean. So whether that's in your guidebook, or maybe there's magnets you can put up, or a sign you can put up in your unit, so that they understand what that means. I know when we're walking on the beach here, my 5-year-old has become such a know-it-all, because she knows what the flags mean. And so double red means like you are not supposed to be in the water, period, not even your toe. And she runs around telling people, you're not supposed to be. And there will still be people, you'll see people with their toddlers in the water on a double red flag. And it's terrifying, because those are the days that you do see ambulances headed towards the beach, because people do drown. And so it's definitely
I need to have her come yell at my wife. She wants to swim to Cuba every time there's red flags. And I'm like, get out of the water. Stop it.
Yeah. And there's all these horrible stories of adults who weren't drinking or anything, who a friend got a little too far out and started having a problem, and then they go to rescue them. And actually the person who's trying to rescue ends up being the person that drowned. So it's no joke. And I think it's important to make sure that your guests, it's not your responsibility, it's not your liability, but definitely make sure that they have access to understanding what those flags mean, because a lot of people don't know what it means. They're like, oh, red flag, guess I better be careful. And then here they go. So really important, I think. What else? So I guess, Tim, so we talked about flags, the beaches, animals. You got to use the red flashlights.
Sand.
Sorry?
Sand. We've talked about sand.
Yeah. So what else? I mean, I guess just general, since these are a lot of condos. So do you run into any things that you have to manage around with HOAs? I'm not talking about them trying to change the rules and make it no short-term rentals, because that typically doesn't happen with these big purpose-built communities that are built to be short-term rentals. But in terms of like guests and HOAs, and you ever run into anything there?
Nothing big. I would say develop some sort of relationship with the people that you may have to call for things. Like I said, we have had to call the HOA for different things, like the pool, having an issue, or, we've had noise complaints before where people are complaining about, somebody throwing beer cans off a balcony or something like that. So know who to call ahead of time. Don't wait until you have a problem and then be scrambling, trying to figure out what phone number you're supposed to call. So to me, that's really important. This is kind of a small thing, but it's just kind of a hack that we do. It's very common for HOAs to provide cable and internet and a lot of amenity types, things like that. So with that, you don't always get to choose like your own passwords and things like that. So it ends up being like weird passwords, and I'm like a crazy person about having everything the same and like our system. So I actually install a second router in all of our places. So that way there's like two networks. There's the network that the HOA provides, and it provides you a second network that you can put your own name and password and everything else on. To me, that simplifies things for TVs and just lots of stuff. So that way they're not having to do like a crazy weird password that they usually are. And also that helps me with like, if I need to do, like I talked about the spare door locks in the owner's club, all my door locks, it's the same username and password for the Wi-Fi's that I use for those. So I can actually program those at home. I live in the Smokies, and mail them to my cleaner in the beach market, and she can put them in my owner's closet. So I don't have to I can program it on my one here that is the same and send it out. So that's been a nice thing for us. I'm trying to think of anything else at HOA. Really, it's just having the right people to call and having a certain, a healthy relationship with them. So
yeah,
and ours provides cable. We actually took it out. Our cable, it wasn't that great, and it's like, I don't know who the provider is, but it's like straight from the 90s and everything. I didn't like it, so I actually took it all out and put the cable boxes in our owner's closet. And I just have streaming only in ours. And but don't throw that stuff away, because if they come looking for it, it could cost you some money, if you choose to do that. So
Yeah.
I
Definitely.
think one of the occurrences you should catch ahead of time during the buying process is to make sure there are not any limitations, especially obviously with oceanfront condos, as far as access to the amenities, because of course some buildings will require that you have like an armband or something to use the amenities, and if you self-manage, some buildings won't allow guests of self-managed units access to some of the amenities and things like that. So of course, make sure your agent catches that one ahead of time.
Yeah, that's a great point. Ours does parking passes, so anything like that. Again, just build a system for it. Our system, it's pretty simple. They go in the owner's closet. It's kind of archaic the way we have to buy them. They won't like take credit cards or anything. So like we have to get them like a check, which is annoying. But anyway, and then we have our cleaner pick them up, and we'll buy, whatever, $1,000 a time with them, and we put them in the owner's closet. And then when the cleaner does a turn, she pulls it out and leaves it, writes what she has to write on it and sets it on the counter. So just have, systems for those little things. It's not hard, but you do have to, clear communication with all your vendors, meaning like your cleaner, whoever's going to be doing this stuff. For a lot of HOAs, the parking pass, it serves a couple purposes. They don't want to overflow the parking lot. Usually there is a limit on how many vehicles that you can have for your unit there. So if you have a 1-bedroom, they're probably going to limit you to 1 or 2 cars, depending on the parking lot and the building, of course. But also it's another money maker for them, because they make money off the parking passes typically, which is kind of a subsidiary for your dues usually. So it just goes in the general budget and gets used for fixing up the building typically. So
yeah, always good to have a good relationship with your HOA, so you know who to call when things happen, things like that. What else? Is there anything else that we haven't touched on that you think the listeners would benefit from hearing when it comes to, just common things that happen in this market that we need to manage around or that we have to deal with often?
A big one, it's not so big, it's actually very little, but people often, we have palmetto bugs here, going back to the bugs in the house, and they're kind of like big cockroaches, but they're not nasty. It's not because the house is dirty or because it hasn't been cleaned properly. They just,
they're nasty.
Yeah, I mean, they're kind of nasty. I mean, they look nasty for sure, but they just come inside when the house is, when it's raining outside or the weather's not particularly nice. A lot of the times these palmetto bugs will come inside, and somehow you'll see them crawling up walls, or they'll be upside down on their back dead. But it's not because you're staying in a disgusting rental that hasn't been cleaned properly. It's just one of those other wildlife things we have here.
And the point on that, same thing, bug complaints can be horrible. You'll have a variety of guests. Some guests are totally understanding of it, and some guests are going to go right to there's roaches and I want my money back. And again, the getting ahead of those things helps, and just the more you can educate, the better. Exactly what Bradley just said. If you tell your guests this is what these things are, it's a possibility they're going to come inside. They don't hurt you. We do regular pest control, blah, 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 blah. The more you can say about that in your listing or in your guidebook or something to help mitigate those complaints goes a long ways. So again, if you're from Michigan, you've never seen a palmetto bug, people can freak out. You just ruin their entire vacation because a bug walked inside. So
yeah, they're pretty nasty looking, but they're not roaches. I mean, maybe they are, who knows? But we call them palmetto bugs.
Sounds fancier.
Yeah. Okay, guys. Well, anything else you think that we need to mention?
Wear sunscreen, eat lots of seafood.
All of the above. And if you're ready to buy with us in this market, you can email us at agents@theshorttermshop.com and we will get you connected. In addition to that, you can join our Facebook group. It's called Short-Term Rental, Long-Term Wealth. Same title as my book right behind me. You can also join us. We have a live Q&A every Thursday, and you can join that at strquestions.com to come on and ask us any questions that you have about short-term rental investing. Thank you guys so much, and we will see y'all on the next episode.